Under Trump, this kind of government will perish from the earth.
In July 2023, Robert De Niro's world shattered. First, his teenage grandson died from a lethal drug cocktail. Then, his partner's face became paralyzed after childbirth. Just months later, an ugly court battle exposed dark secrets about his behavior behind closed doors. For the first time in his 60-year career, the intensely private star couldn't hide from the scandals consuming his life. Robert De Niro was born on August 17, 1943, in a hospital in Manhattan. His father, who had Irish and Italian roots, was an abstract artist whose work would later be displayed in big museums. His mother, who had Dutch, English, French, and German ancestry, was also a painter and a poet. They met in 1941 at an art school and fell in love. Even on their honeymoon, they couldn't stop painting. But things changed when he was just 2 years old. His parents separated. The reason was not something people talked about openly back then. His father had realized he was gay. It was a shock to the people around them, and it left a mark on De Niro's early life. Even though his parents no longer lived together, his father stayed close and remained a part of his life. As a little boy, he was pale and skinny, which led to kids calling him Bobby Milk. His life was already complicated, but his grandparents made it even more so. Without his parents knowing, they secretly had him baptized in a Catholic church on September 14, 1945. His parents didn't follow religion, but his grandparents did, and they wanted him to be part of it. This created a quiet tension. His parents' world was about art and self-expression, but his grandparents wanted tradition and faith. He grew up in the streets of Greenwich Village and Little Italy, raised mostly by his mother. His father was still around, but his mother was the one working to support them. She took jobs as a printer and typesetter, working long hours. De Niro spent a lot of time on his own. He found comfort in movies. His father often took him to the theater, and he quickly became obsessed. One actress in particular, Greta Garbo, fascinated him. He didn't fully understand why, but something about the way she performed stuck with him. Then, something unexpected happened. His mother got a job typing scripts for a drama workshop, and as part of her payment, De Niro was allowed to take acting classes for free. He was just 10 years old, and this was his first real taste of acting. Soon after, he got on stage for the first time, playing the Cowardly Lion in The Wizard of Oz in a school play on April 15, 1954. As he got older, school became less important to him. By 16, he made a big decision. He dropped out to become an actor. He had briefly attended the High School of Music and Art, but it lasted only 3 days. The competition and pressure were too much, so he quit. His family wasn't happy, but he didn't care. Instead of school, he spent his time on the streets, watching people, learning how they talked, how they moved. He even joined a small Italian gang at 15. He was never really deep into crime, but he got to see a different side of life. His old nickname, Bobby Milk, stuck with him. Then, at 17, everything shifted again. On September 5, 1960, he joined the Stella Adler Conservatory, a famous acting school. This was where he really started to learn the craft. He studied method acting, a technique that would later define his career. He still tried taking night classes to finish high school, but it didn't last. School was no longer important. Acting was everything. And from that moment on, there was no going back. Robert De Niro's first movie was The Wedding Party, directed by Brian De Palma. He was only 20 when he filmed it in 1963, but because of legal problems, the movie didn't come out until 1969. That long delay made his debut seem more mysterious than it really was. The movie itself was small, shot in black and white, and not very popular, but it was important because it was the first step in De Niro's career. In 1973, everything changed for De Niro with Bang the Drum Slowly. It was a movie about baseball, but really, it was a story about friendship and loss. De Niro played Bruce Pearson, a catcher who wasn't very smart and was dying of Hodgkin's disease. He took the role seriously. To make it real, He spent months learning how to play baseball and even trained with the St. Louis Cardinals. He wanted every movement to feel natural. Critics noticed. They said his acting felt real, not like a performance, and they praised him for bringing so much emotion to the role. But getting the part wasn't easy. He had to audition 7 times before he was finally chosen. When the movie came out on July 26, 1973, it was a success. It made $5 million, which was a lot for a small film. More importantly, it made people pay attention to De Niro. This was the first time Hollywood really saw what he could do. That same year, De Niro met a director who would change his life, Martin Scorsese. Their first movie together was Mean Streets, and it came out just a few months after Bang the Drum Slowly. De Niro originally wanted the lead role, but it went to his friend Harvey Keitel. Instead, De Niro played Johnny Boy, a reckless gambler who was always getting into trouble. It turned out to be the perfect role for him. He brought a wild energy to the character, making Johnny Boy unpredictable and dangerous. People couldn't take their eyes off him. The movie had a small budget, only $500,000, and filming wasn't easy. They shot in real locations in New York's Little Italy, and Scorsese even had to pay off local mobsters so they wouldn't interfere. In one case, a building owner refused to let them film until Scorsese's father stepped in and made a deal. Despite all the challenges, the movie turned out raw, real, and full of life. Critics loved it. De Niro won an award for Best Supporting Actor, and suddenly, everyone in Hollywood knew his name. Then, in 1974, he became a star. That was the year he played young Vito Corleone in The Godfather Part 2. The first Godfather movie had been a huge hit, and this sequel had big expectations. De Niro had to play a younger version of the character that Marlon Brando had made famous. He took it seriously. He spent 4 months learning how to speak in a Sicilian dialect, making sure he sounded completely authentic. His dedication paid off. The movie was a massive success, and at the Academy Awards, De Niro won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. He was only 31, but in true De Niro style, he didn't even show up to accept the award. He was in Italy, filming another movie, because for him, the work always came first. His win wasn't just big for him, it was big for The Godfather Part 2, which won 6 Oscars that night. He had beaten 2 of his own co-stars, Michael V. Gazzo and Lee Strasberg, to take home the award. Winning that, Oscar proved that he wasn't just a rising actor, he was one of the best, and this was only the beginning. Robert De Niro's performance in Taxi Driver was unforgettable, and the way he prepared for it was just as shocking. To truly understand the life of a New York cab driver, he got a real taxi license and drove around the city for 3 months, working 12-hour shifts. Even though he had just won an Oscar for The Godfather Part 2, almost no one recognized him. That was exactly what he wanted. He needed to feel invisible, just like Travis. He didn't just study the role, he lived it. Then came the most famous moment in the movie. The "You talking to me?" scene wasn't even in the script. De Niro made it up while looking at himself in the mirror, talking like a man slowly losing his mind. That wasn't the only thing he did to transform into Travis. He lost 35 pounds. He spent time with Vietnam War veterans who had PTSD, trying to understand their pain. He even wore Travis's boots for 2 months straight, walking 15 miles a day, so they felt like second skin. By the time filming started, he didn't just look like Travis, he was him. But De Niro wasn't done pushing himself. When he played boxer Jake LaMotta in Raging Bull, he went even further. First, he trained with LaMotta himself, sparring for months, until the real boxer said De Niro could have gone pro. But then came the hardest part. The movie also showed LaMotta as an older, heavier man, and De Niro refused to wear a fat suit. Instead, he actually gained 60 pounds. For 4 months, he traveled through Italy and France, eating as much as he could. Pasta, bread, ice cream, anything to make his body change. He went from 145 pounds to 215. The weight gain was so extreme that it made it hard for him to breathe and move. The production team rushed to finish filming his heavier scenes because they were scared for his health. Afterward, doctors warned him never to do something like that again. It took him over a year to recover, but the effort paid off. He won an Oscar for Best Actor. His obsession with making his roles feel real didn't stop there. For The King of Comedy, where he played a man obsessed with fame, he wanted to get inside the mind of a stalker. So he met a real one. But that wasn't enough. He started secretly following Jerry Lewis, the actor who played the talk show host in the movie. He watched how Lewis reacted to fans, how he moved, how he behaved when no one was looking. Lewis was uncomfortable, but it worked. De Niro's performance felt disturbingly real. Then came Goodfellas, where every tiny detail mattered to him. He played gangster Jimmy Conway, a man obsessed with money and power. To make it real, De Niro wore silk underwear for the entire shoot, just like the real-life gangster. He also insisted on using real money in every scene. When the cameras rolled, the stacks of cash weren't fake. De Niro even brought $5,000 of his own to set. And then there was the phone scene. In a moment of pure rage, he smashed a phone, breaking the glass. A piece of it cut his hand, but instead of stopping, he kept going. He used his own blood, smearing it onto Ray Liotta's face. That take made it into the final movie. It wasn't planned, but that was how De Niro worked. If it felt real, he kept going. That was why his performances were unforgettable. Robert De Niro's first marriage happened fast. He met Diane Abbott on the set of Taxi Driver in 1976, and just 3 months later, on April 28th, they were married. Their son, Raphael, got his name because he was conceived at the Hotel Raphael in Rome. At the time, De Niro was deep into method acting and stayed in character as Travis Bickle even after filming ended, which put stress on their new marriage. But despite this, they welcomed Raphael on November 9, 1976. De Niro also adopted Abbott's daughter, Drina, who was born in 1971, showing his commitment to family. Their marriage lasted 12 years, during which De Niro became a superstar with movies like The Deer Hunter, 1978, and Raging Bull, 1980. Abbott even appeared in some of his films, like The King of Comedy, 1982, where she played a bartender. But eventually, the marriage ended in 1988. The divorce was settled quietly, with De Niro paying Abbott $6.2 million, which was a huge amount at the time. After the divorce, De Niro started dating model and actress Toukie Smith in 1988. Their relationship lasted until 1996 and was unusual in many ways. In 1995, they had twin sons, Julian Henry and Aaron Kendrick, through in vitro fertilization and surrogacy, which was rare for celebrities back then. De Niro was 52 when the twins were born, which challenged the usual ideas about fatherhood. Around the same time, there were also rumors that he was seeing supermodel Naomi Campbell, making his personal life even more complicated. Smith was very private and refused to talk about their relationship, once saying, "Do you know how to spell private? Private, and that's with a capital P." When they split in 1996, they agreed on a co-parenting arrangement where they took turns caring for the twins in 4-day cycles, showing their dedication to raising them together. In 1997, De Niro married Grace Hightower, but their relationship was full of ups and downs. They first met in 1987 at Mr. Chow, a fancy restaurant in London, where Hightower worked as a hostess. After dating for 10 years, they finally got married on June 17, 1997. But things turned rocky quickly. Just 2 years later, in 1999, De Niro filed for divorce. The split never became official, and, in a surprising turn, they renewed their vows in 2004 in a grand ceremony in the Catskill Mountains, surrounded by celebrity guests. Together, they had 2 children, Elliot, born on March 18, 1998, and Helen Grace, born via surrogate on December 23, 2011. Their marriage lasted 21 years, but it was far from perfect. There were reports that Hightower controlled De Niro's finances and film projects, which caused tension. Their final split came in 2018, and the divorce battle got ugly. De Niro's lawyer even claimed the actor was being forced to work just to pay for Hightower's expensive lifestyle. It was revealed in court that she spent $215,000 a month on credit cards and another $160,000 in cash, which shocked many people. De Niro becoming a father again at 68 was unexpected. On December 23, 2011, he and Hightower welcomed their daughter, Helen Grace, through surrogacy. This made him one of the oldest celebrity fathers in Hollywood. Some admired him for embracing fatherhood at that age, while others criticized it. Coincidentally, his close friend Al Pacino also became a father around the same time, welcoming twins at 70. De Niro took fatherhood seriously. He even took a 6-month break from acting to spend time with his daughter, which cost him major film roles, including one in The Judge, 2014. His experience as an older father also changed the roles he picked. He started taking on more family-friendly movies, like The Family, 2013, and The Intern, 2015. When asked about being a father later in life, De Niro simply said, "I love my children, just being with them." When you have the good moments, you forget about the ones that weren't good. Robert De Niro's career took a surprising turn in 2012 when he starred in Silver Linings Playbook. He was 69 years old, and it had been 21 years since his last Oscar nomination. But this role changed that. He played Pat Solitano Sr., a father obsessed with the Philadelphia Eagles, struggling with obsessive-compulsive tendencies. The movie was a massive success, making over $236 million worldwide, even though it had a small budget of just $21 million. But what really stood out was De Niro's performance. In one scene, he unexpectedly teared up while giving an emotional speech to Bradley Cooper's character. That moment wasn't in the script. It was real, and it made his performance even more powerful. He didn't win the Oscar, but the nomination was still historic. The movie became the first in 31 years to be nominated in all 4 acting categories. More importantly, it reminded everyone that De Niro was still one of the best actors in the world. A new generation of film fans saw him in a fresh light. Then, in 2019, he reunited with Martin Scorsese for The Irishman. He was 76, and people were calling this his best performance in 20 years. The movie had a massive budget of $200 million and used advanced de-aging technology so he could play his character, Frank Sheeran, at different ages. The role wasn't about big, dramatic scenes. It was about small details. The way he looked, the way he moved, the way his face barely changed, but still showed so much emotion. Over the film's 3.5-hour runtime, he took the audience through Sheeran's entire life, from a young truck driver to a lonely, regretful hitman. Some people didn't like the de-aging effects, especially in a scene where he beats up a grocer, but that didn't matter. His performance was incredible. The film got 10 Academy Award nominations, including Best Picture, and because it was released on Netflix, it reached over 26 million households in its first week. This movie proved that De Niro wasn't just a legend from the past. He was still at the top of his game, willing to take risks, try new technology, and push himself in new ways. In 2023, he worked with Scorsese again on Killers of the Flower Moon. This was a huge moment, not just because of the movie, but because it was the first time De Niro and Leonardo DiCaprio were acting together in a Scorsese film. At 79 years old, De Niro played William Hale, a powerful rancher involved in the Osage Nation murders of the 1920s. The film was one of Scorsese's biggest projects, with a budget of over $200 million. De Niro went all in for the role. He gained weight, spent hours in makeup, and aged across different time periods. When the movie premiered at the Cannes Film Festival, the audience gave it a 9-minute standing ovation. Critics called De Niro's performance chilling, saying it was one of the most menacing roles he had played in years. The film wasn't just a story, it was about a dark, hidden part of American history. And De Niro made sure his performance made it even more powerful. After 7 decades in Hollywood, De Niro is still one of the greatest actors of all time. He started acting in the 1960s and never slowed down. Every time people think he might fade away, he reinvents himself. He moves between serious dramas and comedies, making himself relevant to every new generation. In Joker, 2019, he played a talk show host in a movie that made over $1 billion worldwide. And he isn't just an actor. He co-founded the Tribeca Film Festival in 2002, turning it into one of the biggest film festivals in the world. His production company, Tribeca Productions, keeps making great films and TV shows. Younger actors look up to him, not just because of his talent, but because of his work ethic. Even in his late 70s, he works non-stop. In 2023 alone, at 79 years old, he starred in 3 major films: Killers of the Flower Moon, About My Father, and Megalopolis, directed by Francis Ford Coppola. Some actors slow down as they age, but De Niro keeps proving that talent, dedication, and passion can make someone timeless. Hollywood changes, but De Niro stays legendary. Robert De Niro's life changed forever on July 2, 2023. His 19-year-old grandson, Leandro, was found dead in his Manhattan apartment. The cause was a drug overdose. The medical report later revealed a deadly mix of fentanyl, cocaine, ketamine, and other substances. Leandro had been following in his grandfather's footsteps as an actor. He even appeared in A Star Is Born, 2018. But his life ended too soon. De Niro, known for always staying serious and private, was deeply shaken. In a rare moment of emotion, he told People magazine, "It's just a shock. I never thought it would happen." Things got even worse when, just 2 weeks later, police arrested a 20-year-old woman named Sophia Haley Marks. She was accused of selling Leandro fake prescription pills laced with fentanyl. The pills were supposed to be oxycodone and Xanax, but they were deadly counterfeits. The case brought attention to the opioid crisis in America. The Drug Enforcement Administration had already warned that nearly half of fake prescription pills tested for fentanyl contained enough to kill a person. Leandro's death became a tragic example of how dangerous these drugs were. It also started conversations about drug education, stricter prescription laws, and better support for people struggling with addiction. As De Niro dealt with this heartbreaking loss, another storm hit. In November 2023, he found himself in court, facing a $12 million lawsuit. His former assistant, Graham Chase Robinson, accused him of discrimination, harassment, and verbal abuse. She had worked for him for 11 years, moving up from personal assistant to vice president of his company, Canal Productions. She claimed that during those years, she had to deal with unwanted touching, inappropriate comments, and unfair treatment. In court, a voicemail was played where De Niro was heard yelling and cursing at her. But this wasn't just Robinson's case against De Niro. Years earlier, in 2019, De Niro and his company had sued her for $6 million. They accused her of stealing money, misusing company funds, and even watching 55 episodes of Friends while on the clock. They also said she had transferred 5 million airline miles, worth around $85,000, to her personal account. The trial lasted 8 days. De Niro spent 2 of those days on the witness stand. He denied abusing Robinson, but he did admit to some of her claims. When asked if he had told her his personal trainer was paid more because he had a family to support, he said yes. When asked if he ever asked her to scratch his back, he smirked and said, "Okay, twice? You got me." After 5 hours of jury deliberation, the verdict was in. De Niro himself was not found guilty, but his company, Canal Productions, was ordered to pay Robinson $1.2 million. The jury ruled that the company had discriminated against her because of her gender, and had retaliated against her after she spoke up. The case damaged De Niro's reputation. It also made people talk about workplace power dynamics, gender discrimination, and how personal and professional lines sometimes get blurred in Hollywood. Then, just when it seemed like life couldn't get more difficult, De Niro's partner, Tiffany Chen, faced a shocking health crisis. In July 2023, she revealed that she had been diagnosed with Bell's palsy shortly after giving birth to their daughter, Gia. It all started with a slight tingling in her tongue. Then, her face started to feel strange. One day, she looked in the mirror and saw that her face was drooping. Things got worse fast. Within days, she could barely eat. Food would just fall out of her mouth. She was slurring her words. She rushed to the hospital, where doctors ran tests and discovered she had Bell's palsy. Most of the time, Bell's palsy only affects one side of the face. But in Tiffany's case, both sides were paralyzed. She couldn't speak properly. She couldn't smile at her newborn baby. And she couldn't even give her daughter a kiss. It was heartbreaking. She admitted that she felt self-conscious and frustrated. De Niro, who usually kept his emotions to himself, was supportive. He reassured her, saying she looked fine, even joking that she just looked a little stern. But while dealing with all these personal struggles, De Niro didn't stay quiet in the public eye. On September 24, 2024, at the New York premiere of Megalopolis, a film by Francis Ford Coppola, he made headlines again. In front of a full theater, he took the microphone and started talking about Donald Trump. "Imagine Trump directing Megalopolis," he said. "It'll never go anywhere. Total craziness. He cannot do anything." He kept going, saying, "He cannot hold anything together. He wants to destroy the country." The speech came just weeks before the 2024 election, where Trump was running for president again. Some people in the audience, including Spike Lee, cheered him on. Others thought it was inappropriate to bring politics into a film premiere. This wasn't the first time De Niro had spoken out against Trump, and it wouldn't be the last. Earlier that year, on May 28th, he made a surprise appearance outside the Manhattan courthouse, where Trump's hush money trial was happening. He stood alongside two former police officers who had been at the Capitol riot on January 6th. In front of reporters, he called Trump a clown and warned that if he won the election, he would never leave office. The moment quickly went viral. Trump supporters in the crowd heckled him, and the whole scene turned into a shouting match. Trump's campaign responded by calling De Niro a washed-up actor and saying Biden's team was desperate for attention. De Niro's public statements also cost him an award. On June 2nd, 2024, just 5 days before he was set to receive the Service to America Award from the National Association of Broadcasters, ANAB, the organization took back the honor. They said his recent comments about Trump were too controversial. They insisted they supported free speech, but felt his involvement would be a distraction. Some people saw this as unfair, arguing that he was being punished for speaking his mind. Others felt the NAB had made the right decision, saying actors should stay out of politics.